It's the biggest day on the triathlon calendar, or half of it anyway. It's the Ironman World Champs, and for the first time in history, the women's world champ will be crowned in Europe.
If you haven't been following the world of Ironman, the experiment/new direction that Ironman have chosen/been forced into comes with a gender split world champs. One in Nice and the other one in Kona. This time, it's the turn of the woman to tackle the Ironman world champs in the Mediterranean swim, the Alpes-Maritimes bike route, and the run along the Promenade des Anglais in Nice.
Last year, we saw the men tackle this route for the first time as the world champs anyway. It's obviously hosted the Ironman France race since 2005. And it was a successful day, particularly for Frenchman Sam Laidlow. It seems, however, unlikely we'll have a French woman win this year, but we'll get onto the contenders in just a minute. First, some things to consider.
The race happens later than the men's did last year, 12 days later on the 22nd of September. Now that might not sound like much, but big shifts happen in the weather in September in Nice, like the sea temperature dropping by 3 to 4 degrees Celsius and daily temperatures dropping by almost the same amount across the month, and increasing cloud cover and increased chance of rain. Now, last year, the men's race was really hot, and more than likely the women's race will be this year as well. But it could also be wetsuit legal and even have wet roads, which would seriously change this race.
So, to the course. We did actually a whole course preview video last year, and given it is the same course, you can watch that if you want the full info. But briefly, the swim is in the Mediterranean and may or may not be wetsuit legal. Almost certainly will be for the age group women, but for pros, it could really go either way. The temperature will be right around that cutoff.
Yeah. The bike is the real talking point here. It's a spectacular single loop 180 kilometer route that includes 2,427 meters. That's nearly 8,000 feet of climbing, and most of that happening in the first third of the course. In fact, the course is almost perfectly split into thirds. The first third is mostly climbing, the middle 60 kilometer or so is fairly flat along the plateau, and the final third is featuring a lot of twisting and turning, descending.
Yeah, it couldn't be more different from the rolling, windswept highways of Kona. And then the run is flat. 4 out-and-back runs along the promenade, which could be awfully boring if it wasn't for the very enthusiastic spectators.
Yeah, France is famous for its spectators, and there will be lots of them. So, it's not the Kona course. So who does it suit? Well, Mark actually crunched some numbers on best bike split.
It does come with a slight caveat. Obviously, I was guesstimating some numbers to a degree, FTPs, weights, various things like that. But, you know,
how did it go guessing the weight of a professional woman, Mark?
Yeah. Anyway,
you can put them in Google, and Google's got its idea of how much they weigh.
Exactly.
I'm not sure how accurate that is, though.
Yeah. Who's at race weight? Well, anyway. Now, just to give some context, for Kona last year, 2 athletes in particular that I'm looking at here, Lucy Charles-Barclay and Haug, partly because also, not very, but there are different physiques, I guess. Okay, so a taller athlete of Lucy Charles-Barclay and Haug, she's very small, very light athlete that could suit a mountainous course, right? So they were the 2 I picked out. Obviously, loads of other athletes to consider here. Those 2 in Kona were separated on the bike by 8 minutes in terms of their bike split, okay? Here, running the numbers, separate by about a minute and a half.
And if you suck the numbers right.
In favour of Lucy Charles-Barclay.
So she should still have a faster bike split, but not by the same amount.
No, and obviously you'd expect her to have a faster swim, so she's going to have a little bit of a buffer coming off the bike, but still in touching distance for Anna Haug.
Yeah, with Annie Haug's run, especially on that course, you do kind of think that this shifts the whole course more towards Annie Haug's strengths, and that will almost certainly see her Lucy Charles being run down towards the back end. Given that's Mark's numbers being crunched. In real world, maybe not quite exactly how it's going to pan out, but it does make it very interesting, because if we were going back to Kona, it would be fairly easy to predict how the race was going to pan out. But when you're on a course that none of these women have raced each other on before, it's really hard to predict where it's going to go, who's going to gain on the swim, lose on the bike, gain on the run, etc., which is going to make it very interesting to watch. So, to the contenders. We'll go in start number order, but that's not necessarily order we expect that they'll finish on race day.
Yeah, so first off we have Lucy Charles-Barclay, number 1, defending Ironman world champion, although she won that in Kona last year, so doesn't predict success here. However, she also raced Ironman France here on this course in June this year and won that. Other than that, this year she has focused on obviously the T100 series. In fact, she very publicly stated at the end of last year that she would not defend her Ironman title and would only focus on the T100 series. And in that series, she's had 2 second places and a DNF in T100 London.
Yeah, but then in June, she made a surprise announcement that she'll race Ironman France as a test, but also as a validation of her spot for Nice, which means suddenly she was actually going to line up at the Ironman World Champs after all. And that Ironman France performance kind of puts her in favourite, but then after the London DNF and no other races, there's also a question mark. Also, she has to race that T100 in Singapore only 6 days later, but we'll think of that after this one is over, as will Lucy, I imagine.
Yeah, right. Next athlete then, Anna Haug, bib number 2. In another rather weird build-up to this race, Anna Haug was also here at the Ironman France event in June, but she didn't actually race the Ironman. She raced the age group only, 70.3 here.
Yeah, weird. But she has won Ironman Lanzarote in May and Challenge Roth in July, so she might just be the on-paper favourite here in Nice, as long as she can stay within striking distance of the leaders off the bike. It's almost given that no one will outrun her.
Yeah, that's pretty safe, I'm sure.
On to Laura Phillip, bib number 3, third in Kona last year and runner-up to Anne Haug in Roth earlier this season. Laura Phillip is kind of past due for a step up to this top step of a podium in a major race. With her all-round strength in the swim, the bike, and the run, and some phenomenal times in the Ironman distance, it seems only a matter of time before her chips fall in her favour and she bags a big one. Or maybe she gets so frustrated and races really aggressively to bag that big one. Maybe that's what's been missing.
Yeah. All right, next on the list then, Chelsea Sodaro, bib number 4. Sodaro seems to be riding the pro athlete roller coaster of late. High highs and plenty of lows. And since her surprise even to herself to win Kona in 2022, 2023 has been a frustrating series of DNFs and not quite there. She seems to have found some form winning Ironman New Zealand this March, but since then she's only finished 1 race, the T100 in London, where she was 8th. And I think it's fair to say that Sodaro winning in Nice will be almost as surprising as a Kona win in 2022.
I think that's probably fair to say. On to Kat Matthews, bib number 6. You might notice that we burst out bib number 5. That was none other than Daniela Ryf, who has retired in the interim and won't be starting here. Someone who seems to have no problem whatsoever with the big occasion, almost seems to find an extra gear on those big days, is Kat Matthews. Ranked 4th in the world and 5th in the Ironman Pro Series, following wins in both Ironman Texas and Ironman Vitoria-Gasteiz, Matthews will be looking for a World Champs result that can solidify both her Pro Series ranking and maybe even jump her all the way to the top of those Pro Series rankings.
Yeah, now she was, I guess, humbled a little last year in Kona with the DNF, despite obviously big expectations, but that, I'm sure, will only fuel the fire. And of course, she won't have the extreme heat and humidity to deal with that you obviously have in Kona.
True. And now we'd be surprised if the winner of the 2024 Ironman World Championships wasn't one of those 5 women we've already mentioned. But there are a few women who could deliver exactly such an upset. Starting with Jackie Herring. Winner of Ironman Hamburg and Lake Placid, her swim can leave her a little bit exposed, but she has a very solid run and she's currently leading the Pro Series.
Yeah, we also have India Lee, well ranked number 7, but very much a middle distance specialist, I'd say.
And then we have Danielle Lewis, winner of Ironman Lake Placid in July and 5th at Roth, and 2nd in the Pro Series.
We also have Fenella Langridge, renowned for her swimming prowess.
Yep, Marjolaine Pierre, local to Nice, living almost on the bike course. Definitely more of a middle distance specialist, but clearly couldn't pass up the chance to race at home at World Championships. And she won the World Triathlon Long Distance Champs and Ironman Portugal in the past, so she's not a stranger to the distance.
Yeah, we also have Maya Stage Nielsen, 3rd in the Pro Series currently.
We have Els Visser. She's already raced 4 fulls and 8 halves this calendar year, including podiums at Roth and Vitoria-Gasteiz, only a week apart.
Yep, Nina Deron as well.
And Reichman, 4th at Roth, but will have to overcome a weaker swim to be in contention here in this race. And then there's a whole lot more athletes, 50 women on the start list.
Well, also would like to say just a thanks to Thorsten Rad, Tri Rating, because he puts together every year a very thorough kind of analysis of the World Championship field, which we obviously looked at and used a little bit for this one. If you want some more detail, then definitely head on over to his website and check that report out.
Yeah, he uses stats to predict who might win, but by his own admission, you can't really predict a world champion.
And it also infuriates the athletes as well, because they're like, how dare you say my swimmer's that poor?
Yeah, anyway, it is quite useful for us pundits to have a look at who the favourites might be. So, speaking of favourites, Mark, who are your favourites? Going to put them out there, predictions.
Okay, I'm going to be honest, I really want to see Laura Phillip take the win. Yeah, I just feel like, as we said already, I feel like it's her time. Is this the course for her? Kind of. However, I think it's going to be hard to look past Anna Haug, in my opinion, taking the title. And then I think Laura Phillip second. And if Lucy is in form, I'm unsure after T100 in London whether there is an injury there. I'm going to say her in third.
Well, I'm going to predict that Lucy is not on form, not firing all cylinders for Ironman. I'm going to also go, though, with Anne Haug, because I do think that she is the nailed-on favourite for this. Unless something goes really wrong with her run form at the moment, this is hers for the losing. I think that probably you're going to get Kat Matthews run up to second place and Laura Phillip hang on for third on the podium. So there you go.
There's so many amazing women to choose from as well. Yeah, I would love to see Kat up there as well. And
whatever happens, it's going to be an exciting race, and we'll be on the ground in Nice watching.
And also, I'd actually like to add, last year's men's race, I'd say, was a success in Nice. But this is the real test of Ironman strategy, because last year there was still, I guess, a bit of a COVID hangover of qualifiers, and there was a lot of intrigue in the novelty of the World Championships outside Kona.
True. But this time, there has been a notable effort by Ironman to fill those spots. Now, women, of course, have equal numbers for the Ironman World Champs, but only make up around 20% of most Ironman fields and general population of Ironman, which has meant roll downs where basically every female finisher has been offered a slot for the Ironman World Champs.
Yeah, no doubt the racing at the pointy end will still be as fierce and entertaining as we've come to expect from women's long course triathlon these days. But will there be 2,400 age groupers behind those pros, or have the women voted with their entries for a Kona World Champs?
Well, it remains to be seen. I think you probably will find a smaller field than Kona. I think many women would have passed this one and gone, well, next year it's back in Kona. I'd rather invest in that one. And I think you might see the same happening next year in Nice for the men as people start voting with their money, as it were. I'm going to skip a World Champs and go to the next one.
Personally, I still feel, from my perspective, there's still a bit of intrigue in Nice. I'm excited about the course, having been there. It's amazing.
I have no problem with the World Champs being in Nice. Yeah. I think it's brilliant. My issue, I think, is the split World Champs. I think they have to do away with the split World Champs. I think the entire World Champs should be in Nice, and I think it'll be an amazing spectacle. I don't think the World Champs needs to be tied to Kona. However, I also don't think the World Champs needs to be split.
No.
I think splitting it just so you can have a World Champs in Kona, even if it's not the entire World Champs in Kona, is not the right call. But I'm not the one who makes the decisions, and it remains to be seen how it goes from here on in. Hope you guys enjoy the race. We'll be on the ground in Nice, as we said, watching the whole day unfold, and we'll bring you a race reaction immediately afterwards. So look out for that. And let us know down below who you think is going to win this year.
Yeah, if you enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up, give it a like. See you next time.